What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market, how it may affect NIO, and why I believe the market's in the topping process right now, and how I think that's going to dictate NIO's price action. I'm going to break down why NIO may have a final top coming before we do get some very healthy downside for the markets, and I would say it's likely going to come very soon. Not saying it has to start tomorrow immediately, but it likely will start like by next week or even like a week after that. And I do believe this will have a big effect on NIO. So I'm going to show you guys some important technical signals, what they're telling us about the charts, and why you need to be very careful moving forward in this market. But before I break anything down about NIO and SPY and the QQQ and many other stocks out there, I have to mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 10 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any could be a free NIO share. The offer ends in just a few weeks, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So I'm recording this during power hour, and so far SPY is just chopping around quite a bit. It's a little bit in the red. Now, the real question is the market going to try to get one more pop, or is the market going to come down? Well, first, let's talk about some data. For tomorrow, we have some Fed speakers, some exports and imports data. And by the way, PPI came out a little bit lower than expected, so PPI was good. We also had initial jobless claims, which were a little bit hot. This was also somewhat good in a way for the market because we're starting to see unemployment increasing over and over again, and the market wants that. So overall, pretty decent data. But now the question comes as to what's going to happen tomorrow. We have some Fed speakers and lots of data. Also, the consumer sentiment survey data is coming out. Now, as far as the Fed goes, we had Waller speaking, and he said that climate change does not deserve financial treatment. That's just his opinion, right? Different people could have their own opinions. I'm okay with that, but I just wanted to share that because it's relevant to the markets and the Fed. He also mentioned that, excuse me, he also mentioned that there are going to be other issues for the markets going forward, especially for the Fed, and they have to look at what's happening with the credit markets right now. Now, as far as the market goes, SPY has about a 1.6 put to call ratio with over 700,000 puts expiring and about 450,000 calls expiring. So the majority of people have puts for tomorrow. Only few are actually in the money. The market makers are likely going to try to side with the bulls for tomorrow, but there is something I have to warn you guys about that in just a few minutes. Now, NIO has some new news that came out. Their latest filings are hinting at an EV powered or at EVs powered by solid state batteries coming as early as summer. So once again, that's very great news for them. If this does end up coming out, this is going to expand their battery capabilities with solid state battery developer WeLion. That's once again good news for them. It's going to help them get more and more EVs, power them a lot more efficiently, improve their capacities, and it's going to help more and more people use them on a day-to-day basis. Now, what else is good about this is there's been a lot of progress with this technology going forward, and we're likely going to see this come out very soon. So if that ends up being the case, I mean, they did unveil this as early as like 2021. Very soon, I believe it's going to happen, so it's good news overall, and this is part of why NIO is up today. NIO got average volume, which is pretty good. We're actually near close, so it's likely going to be a little bit higher than average. The short volume is down to about 40%, and overall, we're seeing a price-per ratio. It's very sold in a way where it's very low, so NIO likely will try to bounce a little bit more. But the question is, what's going to happen to the markets, and how will this dictate NIO? Well, excuse me. Unfortunately, on SPY, we have a head and shoulders like development, and I believe it's very likely this will play out. I think personally that the market has more downside coming based off these sell signals. I mean, there was a bearish divergence that formed here on the daily chart, and I think it also shows on the hourly on SPY, and it's likely going to end up playing out. So right here, there's another one, I believe. Let me see if I could find it. I think like right here, there's another one, another bearish divergence that formed. This is once again significant, and I do believe there's downside coming. Before the downside comes, we could get one last pop and one last attempt to fill the gap at 415. I'm not as confident about it, but it is a possibility. But once again, guys, it would just be Wall Street repositioning, getting ready to short the markets. I'm expecting some downside by the time we get to next week. I'm expecting SPY to at least fill the gap to 406 next week, if not go lower than that. Now on the QQQ, there's a bearish divergence, very clear bearish divergence on the hourly chart. RSI is downtrending, telling us the QQQ is in the topping process. It also is forming a rising wedge-like pattern. I know I'm using the hourly chart. You can see this on the daily too. Rising wedge is forming. That tends to be bearish going forward. So what do I think? I'm thinking we could see a little more upside tomorrow. The market could hold up, even push, depending on what the market makers choose to do and what they allow. But not too confident about that, guys. For the longer term or like the more medium term, I think that by next week or within the next 1 to 2 weeks, the market's going to see some very healthy downside. I think it's overdue, and I'm seeing bearish divergences developing with bullish divergences for the inverse ETFs, right? If you look at the VIX, the SQQQ, they're looking very, very bullish to me. And very soon, I believe we're going to get that pullback. Now, I also want to break down something else. If we look at Tesla, for instance, it's currently at almost 170. It is possible for Tesla to get one more pop to the upside. It still is possible since it has some relative strength right now. Not seeing much of a divergence, but Tesla is gaining some strength in the RSI. It could try to pop one more time, but I do think the market will drag Tesla down later on after that. Now, I also want to add that looking at the dollar index, this is once again holding up. It's holding up quite nicely, and there is a potential excuse me, bearish divergence on the 1 hour time frame. But when you zoom out of it, I believe I saw a bullish divergence on the daily chart. So for like the more medium term, I think the dollar is looking bullish. For the short term, even like going into tomorrow, it might cool off a bit because the market could pump a little bit. That's what the dollar is telling us, but there is a bullish divergence forming. The dollar is telling me that we might see a little upside in the market tomorrow. But for the medium term, for like next week and beyond, looking at the daily chart on the dollar, it looks bullish. It looks like the dollar might get a breakout. There's a bullish divergence, and we might see the dollar start to push for 103 or even higher as the market starts to tank quite a bit. Finally, on the VIX, this has a clear bullish divergence. I mean, there's no denying it. Right here, you could quite clearly see the VIX was making those lows. And despite doing so, the RSI is starting to trend up on the VIX. The VIX is going to bounce soon. It could come down to fill this gap a little bit more tomorrow. So that means the market might still have some upside left, just a little bit more. But then by the time we get to like next week, approaching June, the VIX is going to explode past 20, 22, 23, or even higher than that. And then we're going to see some very healthy downside for the markets soon. Now, what I'm doing in this video is I'm not going to try to scare you or anything. I'm just trying to warn you guys in advance of what's to come. I don't want to just make the video as soon as the market starts dropping. I want to warn you about what I think is happening. What does this mean for NIO? NIO could have more upside coming, right? There's no guarantee NIO is done just yet. There's a bullish cross on the daily PPO. But NIO has heavy resistance at 8.5. For us to turn more bullish, it needs to break above 8.5, and if it does so, 8.7 could come. If NIO is bearish, it has to break below the 200 EMA. If it does that, then 7.9 or even lower will come. But now what I'm seeing on the chart is, looking at this carefully, there's not much going on with any divergences. It's going to likely hold going into tomorrow, just chop around a bit and just be dictated by the markets. But I'm seeing two possibilities. Either NIO is getting ready for some downside with the markets, or NIO could get one more pop as the market makes an attempt to fill some gaps to the upside. So SPY goes from the 415 gap, maybe one last pump, the final pump before we get more downside approaching mid-May going into June. So that's what I'm seeing for NIO, and I think it's going to be dictated by the market. And that's my prediction. My predictions, could always change depending on the technicals, but for now, that's what they are suggesting, and I think it's very likely that's going to play out. So what does this mean for the market? Once again, the market could pump a little bit more, and that could help NIO pump one last time, one more pump to fill this gap, and then we see downside. Or we might fail to do so, and we might just start downtrending from here, because if it fills this gap first and it just starts downtrending, it's just not going to be pretty. Either way, like, I'm not looking at the upside being such a massive move. I mean, it could pump just a few dollars. The bigger move is going to be the downside, and there's going to be a good shorting opportunity up here if we do get an attempt to the upside. downside is imminent. I think the market is due for a pullback, and it's likely going to start next week, if not by the second to third week of May. Going into like June, I am anticipating more downside. All right, guys. So I want to warn you in advance. Don't forget, I have some merch for you guys. If you want to buy a shirt that says "Eat, Sleep, Trade, Repeat" or "To the Moon," or if you want to buy like a hoodie, it's all available near the comment section. Also, don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Put in $100 and you're going to get up to 10 free stocks. Thank you. NIO in the market to the moon, because despite the downside coming most likely for the medium term, there is most likely extreme upside coming for the long term of the markets and the long term of NIO. I just want to be as clear as possible. I'm very bullish on NIO for the longer term. For the medium term, there could be some downside though, and I just want to warn you. All right, thank you. NIO in the market to the moon, and peace out.